Welcome to APDesign Digital Tools. Alright, so now that we have layer structure kind of worked out, let's start talking about modeling. Alright, so let's talk a bit about the relationship of curve to surface to solid. Now, most of this won't seem all that kind of new to you, but if we start with curve and we build, say, a rectangle, we have a lot of ways that we can build that rectangle. If we have specifics in mind, we can actually find a point specific. So say I want to start this first corner at 2 feet, or let's say 5 feet, 5 feet in the X and then 5 feet in the Y. I would type 5, 5, giving it a coordinate. So we can see that it snapped to that point. And then now, if I want to then give it the other corner, I can just, if I think it's random or it's not real specific, I can kind of look at this rectangle just hovering right next to my cursor, and I can use those ways of kind of roughly putting it in place. I don't really like using that box because I don't find it to be terribly accurate. It's really kind of hard to be accurate. So typically when I'm designing, I know kind of more specifics of what I'm building. So let's say that it's a 6-inch by 6-inch rectangle. Now if I just type in 6-inch by 6-inch, it's going to put a point right here, because that's that coordinate. Now if I put an ampersand in front of it, what it does is it builds from the point that I was just at, the first point, 6 by 6 inches. So let's see that. So that is literally a 6-inch by 6-inch rectangle. Just to kind of show that what it's doing there, I'm going to do it again, only this time I'm going to put 6-inch, 6-inch. And you'll see that it created a rectangle that goes back to 6 inches by 6 inches. Okay, so the ampersand can be a major help saver in kind of building specific geometries once you've, especially if they have multiple points. But you can see that in rectangle, and I just typed in rectangle and it came up, or you can go up here, or you can go down here. There's multiple ways depending on your flavor of the month. There's a lot of different ways to build a rectangle. So once you start, and that will go for almost every command here. So once you start, you always want to pay attention to what your other options are, because it might be that you want to make a rounded rectangle. And in that case, I'll go from here, 5, 5 to there at 6-inch, 6-inch, and then I get to tell it how big do I want to make that rounded part. So if I go 0.1, it makes a rounded corners at 0.1 feet. Pretty cool. And that goes on, if I wanted it to always have a center point, start at the center point, I would do that. 5 feet, 5 feet. And so now it's building from that center point. So I'm not going to go through every command and kind of show you this, but I wanted to just start to illustrate using the rectangle that every command you have has a lot of different options up here. So you want to pay attention, because more than likely what you think it should do, it does. You just have to make sure that you click the right thing. Okay, so now let's say that we have the right rectangle that we want. But really what we want to do is extrude that up. So there's multiple ways to do that. We can extrude it as a surface, so I'm going to extrude curve straight. And I'll go up, say, 3 feet. And now I have this open container. You see, it's open. There's no top and there's no bottom. And it's just the surface itself, so it's like an open box. Alright, that's one option. while I'm doing this, I'm going to start to talk about this ribbon down here. This base ribbon is really important. Grid snap will actually snap to the grid that you define. Ortho will actually move and or draw things in perpendicular essentially to your X and Y. So it'll draw along the X or along the Y. And remember that perspective is always oriented from the top unless you specify otherwise. So it's just doing X and Y. So I turn off ortho and I can draw kind of in any direction. Turn on ortho, now it's snapping. Okay, and then there's O-snap. And O-snap's actually a great friend. If you look at all the things, once I turned on O-snap, you saw that this turned from a gray, where I can't touch anything, to this where it's lit up. And I can pick, do I want to snap to an endpoint, to a midpoint, a center point, an intersection point, a perpendicular point, and so on and so forth. So when I'm drawing a line, say I want it to come straight from the middle of this rectangle, you can see that it highlights and kind of snaps to the midpoint. And it tells me if I'm at an endpoint or intersection, or if I'm at a midpoint. So that can be a really good time saver, and it makes for a lot more accuracy. So let's imagine though that we're drawing and we don't want this on for whatever reason because it's snapping to everything. When you're drawing, so I'm drawing now a line because I typed in line, I can type in mid and it will just kind of temporarily create that as a snap. So you can, if the O-snap's kind of snapping crazily to everything and it's very difficult. Now, I don't have too many things going on, so it probably isn't a problem right now. But I can see if you had a complex model, it might be. Okay, so you'll see that once I've had the first point, the second point I decided it's going to be 2 feet long. And then once I do that, it still hasn't built the line. It's still waiting for me to give it a direction. So since the ortho's on, it's now snapping to those X and Y. If I turn ortho off, I can go kind of in any direction, but I'm going to use the ortho. And I'm just going to hit in that direction, and suddenly now it's built. Alright, so that's how you get started. The other thing I want to show you in down here is the Gumball. The Gumball is, people have a love-hate relationship with the Gumball. I personally love it. Some people think that they've kind of lost a little bit of accuracy with it. And I think it all depends on how you use it. So the Gumball will suddenly appear this blue, green, and red arrow and these various arcs. And what that is it allows you to just grab the red arrow and move in that direction. So if I know I need to move this 5 feet, I just type in 5 feet, and because I'm pulling on the red arrow that direction, it'll move it 5 feet. And same would be this way. Okay? And if I want to go up, again I just use the blue arrow. If say I want to copy it while moving it, so I want to leave one here and make a copy, I'm going to hold down the Alt key and you'll see a plus sign it created next to my cursor. That's the way you know it happened. And then you hit, say 5 feet. Now I have a copy of that. Okay, and if you're rotating, you got to find kind of which direction you're wanting to rotate. Now it's always going to rotate around the origin of the gumball, but then I can rotate. And I can give very specific. I can say 90. You see it's snapping to 90, but I could also say 45, and it will snap to 45. Okay, so just another modeling trick that helps things out. Okay. All right, I'm not sure why my screen's kind of snapping, but anyway, hopefully it's not too bad on your end. All right, so we've created a surface that is an open box. Okay, what if we wanted to make a closed box? Well, then we'd go under solid and we would extrude planar curve. So it's very similar to what we did on surface. And you can see again there's multiple options with that command. So I'm just going to do that, and you'll see just a slightly different version of that happen. So now it's closed. So think of this as the solid brick, whereas the other was like an open cardboard box. It had air in the middle of it. This actually has mass, so it's a volume. So it's a solid thing. You can turn an open container as long as this is planar, which means that it is it's not kind of a complex geometry. That's all flat. Like you could put a plane right through this and it would touch every part of the curve. As long as it's planar, you can do what's called cap. You type in cap, and essentially then that turns it into a solid volume. It caps both ends, so both the bottom and the top now have a lid, as it were, and it essentially has a volume. And you can check that. You can say volume, and you know that it has a volume. Before, if we typed in volume, it didn't know. It's not a closed object, so it didn't know like what its volume was because it's paper thin. And if you're going to a 3D printer, volume, if you get a volume out of it, it usually means that it's a watertight object and that you can print it to the 3D printer. Just a side note. Okay, so that goes into surface, solid, and how to use curves and how to begin to draw using this stuff. So thank you.